Welcome back to another episode of Bootstrapping to Billions. This is a continuation of our Exited series, but we're going to get boots on ground in this episode. This is going to be a story arc of where we started to where we are today and all the things in the middle. Alex Smereczniak, welcome to the pod. Thank you for joining us, Bootstrapping to Billions.
Chris, thanks for having me. You nailed the last name too. I'm excited to get into all things franchising, bootstrapping, starting businesses. Thanks for having me on today.
All right. This is going to be an awesome pod. For those who stick with us all the way to the end, we're going to be covering a ton of things. Like you mentioned, we're going to get into like what it actually means and looks like to be hopefully a franchisable type of business. But we're going to story arc this from the very beginning. Everything starts somewhere and somewhere else. In our beginning story, you were in college. It was 2010. You literally experienced boots on ground doing the thing in which you then built as a business, which then took you to where you are today. So we're going to talk about a laundry business that you built in college. We're going to talk about 2U Laundry in 2015, which you ended up going on and you raised $33 million at a $100 million valuation. And you lived that life of a venture-backed business and you extracted these live-learn lessons that you're going to pay it forward to the audience today and share some of the things because you're like quite literally taking those things and applying it to what you're doing today with Franzi. And we're going to get deep into that story as well and hopefully extract some other things in terms of live-learn lessons for the audience. Welcome to the pod. Everything starts somewhere. It is 2010. Take us on back.
Yeah, so I'm originally from cold Minnesota. And as an 18-year-old, it's funny the decisions you're kind of expected to make of, all right, you're going to go out into the world and go do this thing. Where do you want to go and why? And I don't know, I'm a kid basically still. And so I loved basketball. I was like, I'm going to go to a basketball school, ACC school, get the heck out of Minnesota. And I wanted to go somewhere small because I'm from a town of 15,000 people. So I was looking at Duke and, Wake Forest and Vanderbilt and these other schools like that. And I ended up going to Wake Forest. And that's where my entrepreneurial journey started. My whole life have liked taking a little bit of risk and going after things. I think my dad taught me that. He said there's 3 types of jobs you can have or careers you can have. You can either work for somebody else, you can work for yourself, or you can have people working for you. And he's like, the only way you get full kind of financial freedom or freedom of your time at least is to either work for yourself or have other people working for you at some point. And that just stuck with me. So out of the gate, I wanted to do entrepreneurial things or tinker. And so my freshman year at Wake, part of a classroom project was a professor giving groups of 3 or 4 students $100 and saying, hey, over the semester, we're going to ideate a concept, we're going to put it to market, and then we're going to report back at the end of the semester on how much revenue you did. And I remember one group of students did a hot dog stand on the quad. End of the semester, they did $100 in revenue. Everyone's all right, good job. The second group comes up, they were doing like fraternity and sorority t-shirts. They did $500 in revenue. All right, everyone's clapping. Good job. And then the group that I actually worked for, it started Wake Wash, the laundry business. They came up and they're like, we did $5,000 in revenue in a 2-week period. And the professor's jaw hit the floor. And he's like, you guys should keep doing this. And so, Wake Wash became this college state brand, on this brand on campus.
Love that.
And we ended up doing a couple $100,000 a school year in revenue with 80% margins. I learned so much about running business doing that, more than any class I took at Wake. I learned how to hire people, fire people, do contract negotiations with the university, with vendors, marketing, partnerships. I mean, all of it was in this kind of safe, isolated bubble though. And that's what really set my entrepreneurial journey up, was this college laundry business.
I love that. I love that on so many levels for sure. And we're going to take this, we're going to compound this, but before we do, let's appreciate it. Let's elevate it, celebrate it for sure. Because there's maybe some folks in the audience listening right now. They're in college right now and they're like, what should I do? Can I get started? And the answer is yes. All right, let's take a quick break from today's pod, talk about our sponsor, and ask you a question. How much time did you waste on paperwork last week? 5 hours, 6 hours more? That's not how you build a business. You build it by focusing on what matters. Your customers, your team, your growth, not endless forms and filing. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is the all-in-one platform that helps SMBs go fully digital. CRM, invoicing, inventory, project management, basically all connected in one simple place. Here's the game changer. Enter your data once and it flows everywhere. Sales orders become invoices automatically, inventory updates in real time, and your team can access everything from anywhere. This actually saves you time instead of creating more work. It's built for SMBs. You can go check it out today over at odoo.com. Now back to today's pod. So your dad, though, like quite literally the live, learn lesson there, find leverage. It's like work for somebody else, work for yourself, or get other folks to work for you. And you're working down to finding leverage, which is a great way to turn something into an asset and be able to do more with it, for sure. Lesson that you learned early from your dad. Amazing. Beautiful. You then applied it. Wake Wash is a cool brand. Talk about brandable from the beginning. It's like like a college wash franchise in the very start. Wake Wash was a great opportunity because you're in this entrepreneurial ecosystem at the university, which I think there should definitely be far more of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a killer opportunity. And you were able to do the thing, and quite literally, like doing the thing put you in this position to learn the thing, right? Live, learn
Mm-hmm.
lessons all the way through. What happened with Wake Wash? Like, where did this end up going? You took it, you built it, you got it to a few $100,000. It was the start of a journey. Where did things go?
So we always thought it would just be like a resume builder, honestly. I think everyone's so conditioned, or a lot of people are conditioned throughout life to like, all right, I got to get good grades in high school because that's just what my parents and teachers and people are telling me I need to do. So I'm going to go do that. And then I have to get into a college, and then I need to get good grades there so I can go get my Fortune 500 job and then do that for 40 years and die. And I was like, this can't be the only way, like this can't be the only path. And so as we started doing it, I realized this is way more than a resume builder. This could actually be what you do the rest of your life. And you don't have to go work for the Fortune 500 company and take that path that feels so kind of predetermined for you. So we ended up selling the business when we graduated for kind of mid six figures. And again, learned more doing that than any class we took at Wake. But the biggest thing for me was what it opened my eyes to was this alternative path of being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, going out and taking calculated risk, especially at that time in our life where we don't have kids, we don't have a ton of major responsibility. And so we sold it. I did go work for the man for a year or two. I worked for EY, Ernst & Young, doing consulting for a year and a half.
Like the definition of working for the man.
I figured my brain at the time was, all right, consulting will be entrepreneurial. You're jumping from project to project and seeing different things. And I'd say as far as a corporate job goes, it was like you're getting to meet a ton of different people and you're on a different project every 3 to 6 months. And so there's new things happening.
Exposure, yeah.
But it still wasn't as fast as in college. We're like, all right, this week we're going to do this, and next week we're going to do that. And what if today we tested this? And you could just come up with ideas, put them into motion, and then get a response or a result in less than 24 hours. It was like that speed was addicting. And so I felt like everything was slow at EY and everything was so, inefficient at times and wasteful at times. And I didn't feel as fulfilled. And so I decided it's time to go start another business. And that kind of brings us to 2015.
Dude, I would not be doing my job, though, if I did not double click into the very first exit. This is the exited series. So I want to extract as many live, learn lessons as I possibly can. You started in 2010. You did it and executed it while you were a student on campus, quite literally in the perfect incubator of a profitable, simple, profitable business, which is amazing. You brought it to 6 figures in revenue. And then at that moment in time, it was time for an exit. How did the exit end up taking place? Is it one in which you manufactured? Is it one that came to you? What did that even look like? And then what did you learn in that process?
So I had 2 partners and they still wanted to stay on that path of, I'm going to go do investment banking in New York. I'm going to go do marketing for Pepsi. And I don't want to be the guy that was like laundry for life and let's do this forever. As much as I wanted to expand to Duke, Chapel Hill. Yeah. I wanted to expand to, Duke, Chapel Hill, but it just wasn't, I didn't want to pull those guys with me. And then we had offers from other student groups and we felt very passionate about students continuing to take this on because we had learned so much. I mean, it was, again, single-handedly the best learning experience. And so we started a process to take bids from other groups of entrepreneurial students. And there was one group that had 6 or 7. Because at that point, the business had grown to a size where, no college kid's just going to come up with the cash. And so 6 or 7 together came up with money. I think they borrowed some from parents. They took out a loan from them. And we did a little bit of a rev share as well. So we ended up selling the business. We had 3 or 4 offers. There was one off-campus group that offered to buy it. It's a company it was called University Laundry at the time. Tide, Procter and Gamble ended up buying them. It's called Tide University now.
Hmm.
So they have these like small, college laundry businesses all over the country, owned by P&G, a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate.
Oh, that's a cool case study to pull out of this episode. That's cool.
It's pretty, it's fascinating. But we kept it student run, and it stayed student run for 10 to 15 years. There's been 7 or 8 generations of college students that have gotten to buy it, run it, and sell it. And that's like one of the more fulfilling things of it all is that many students have been able to be entrepreneurs through this thing that we initially kicked off.
So when you did that, was that intentional? Was that kind of like put into the operating agreement of the business for legacy student management, or was it just happenstance, pay it forward, and it just continued to? That's like talking about a legacy.
Happenstance, pay it forward. And when we sold, to that student group, we shared with them the passion we had about we want this to stay student run because of just the experience that we have and we know that you're going to have. And sure enough, 2 years later, when that group of freshmen, sophomores ran it for a year or two, they felt the same way. They're like, look, we're going to sell this because we're graduating. And so you also had this kind of weird timing issue where you're only going to run the business for 2 years. So when you sell it, you can't really value it like you would a business that you're going to buy into perpetuity. And the school really loved that it was student run as well. And so the school also was kind of putting some pressure for it to stay student run. The natural exit price was putting pressure on it to keep it student run. Plus that feel good of, hey, this changed my life. This made me way more set up for life after college than I would have otherwise. Why don't we do the same thing? And we also can make some good money and learn a lot along the way. So it ended up being 2 or 3 things, but it's been really cool to see 7 or 8 groups of students. Oh,
for sure, dude. Was the university involved in the deal at all? They didn't have a stake, right? It was just contracts.
No, they didn't have a stake, but they did have to license us the use of names. So like Wake Wash, because Wake Forest is IP and trademarked, they had to give us the right to be able to use that name.
So that continuity existed and everyone's got a vested interest in a phenomenal business story. Dig it, dude. I think that we should double click maybe a little bit further there. So personal experience, this is your episode, but just personal experience in terms of like overlap and shared experience, learned experience. So when I was in college, I did, it was First Social Network for young investors. I was bootstrapping. I didn't have a lot of money. So I was building a team and I need to incentivize folks. So I created this lifestyle card so that folks could get into bars and clubs. And we were like shilling them on campus for $10 a pop and stuff. That business ended up becoming its own little standalone, simple, profitable business. I exited before graduating the social network platform. And one of the kids that was working with me continued. He was at school. He was paying for it himself. And I ended up giving him the lifestyle card business. And he quite literally took that and then used that to pay his tuition and carried it forward. And like 15 years later, he's a very successful dude. Like he just went IPO. He's been on like, 30 under 30 list and all this stuff, but it's crazy. And I feel like there's an opportunity in this university market for something to exist where maybe some sort of program or some sort of facilitating factor like structures and creates this type of opportunity. And talk about continuity and legacy. I didn't have the continuity and legacy. It was just like one person, but it had a big impact, and then to see what you just said and shared, I feel like there's maybe something there. But besides the point of this episode, that's a sidecar. This took you to the point of 2U Laundry though, right? We're in 2015 now. It's a couple of years after you went to EY for a few years. You realize like live, learn lessons. That's not the life for me. You got back into this entrepreneurial game. How did you decide where to get started? What was that thought process then? Take us back to that moment in time.
Yeah, so I never stopped thinking about this laundry thing could work at other colleges or maybe even in cities. And to your point, I was so passionate about other students being entrepreneurial at that point that I thought, could there be a program at other universities where the entrepreneurship department or the business school got involved and they identified kids, we interviewed them, and then we gave them basically like a licensed model of what we were doing at Wake Forest to say, hey, Chris, here's the playbook. We'll help you set it up, run it, find vendors, price it, sell it, all this stuff as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. And then when you go to graduate, we'll help you sell it. So now you get to go through the process of buying, operating, and selling a business again. And you get the same lived, learned experiences that we had that make you better, set up for life after college. Maybe that's another business. Maybe that's an entrepreneurial career at a startup. Who knows what it is? And so at first my brain was going towards, what if we created these pockets at each university that did this kind of like what University Laundry was doing, but with a very intentional entrepreneurial angle to it, where the students are equal owners in the business, 49%, 50% owners intentionally, so they go to sell it when they graduate. And then you could do other things outside of laundry. Maybe it's a local coffee shop on campus. Maybe it's a food stand, whatever it is. You create all these businesses that are student run with a parent company, us owning half of it. And so we started down that path a little bit while I was at EY. We talked to Chapel Hill, we talked to High Point University, a bunch of North Carolina colleges. And the resistance we kept running into was students really wanted to do it. We had all these like really smart kids that were like, I want to do it. Give me the playbook. Yep, the deal sounds good to me. I own half now. I make I make like 80% of the money. And then when I go to graduate, I sell it and you help me. Amazing. So we'd get all this interest. We had the playbook, we had the businesses we were going to run. And then we'd get to the university and the student would navigate us all the way to the right group. And they'd be like, look, we really want our students to be entrepreneurial, but this is, what if they get taken advantage of? I'm like, here's the agreement. It's perfectly laid out. It's very similar to what I did when I was in college. The student wants to do it. Everyone wants to do this. Let's do it. We're not sure. There's too much risk, liability. And it made me realize just how much red tape and bureaucracy there is in a university setting. A lot more than I ever thought. I think I was naive. I was 23 at the time. And I thought, yeah, people just want to do the right thing. And if everyone's, wanting to learn and grow, why not? And I now as a 34-year-old, I realized those people at the university have no incentive to allow this because the upside is very small for them. But the risk is, what if someone's clothes get stolen, or God forbid someone gets assaulted or something, or any number of negative things that could happen that come back on them poorly. But the upside is, which I think is huge, all these students learn all these additional things. But for the dean of residence life and housing or whatever, it's like,
too much risk.
I don't need to do this. So gave up on that aside. So I was,
for a second though, let's appreciate that, because double click, dude, from a framework perspective, it's like, that sounds like almost like a perfect quasi PE type platform play, because it's built-in distribution. It's evergreen built-in distribution. It's the ability to spin it up and keep it going and then scale it out by, like, it seems like it checks a lot of the boxes all the way through, but that university level buy-in is the blocker. There's no way to be able to get around something like that. Right. I don't know. Yeah, we did. I tried to do something with a university around me. I live in Connecticut, and it was like a New York university, and we had an accelerator at the time. So I launched one in like 2012 local, and we tried to take that program and then bring it to a university. And we were brought in by the school to do it. And they took me through this process that was like such a prolonged process, like months and months, like 12 months, 14 months, 15. And then eventually it was just like, yeah, no, we can't do this. Like that bureaucracy of things to just slow things down. It's a very real thing. That's like a very painful thing for sure. But the thought process exercise, definitely something. So maybe somebody in the audience listening, opportunity just to flag opportunity for somebody listening. Maybe somebody smarter than us, more ambitious, more connected, more something, could figure that out, grit and grind it. Show note. If you do, leave a comment. Dig it. So like, take us back. So to you laundry then. So you went through this process. You want to just see if there was distribution into the college market. You saw it. I ran the playbook. Let me see if I could repeat the playbook. Let's play this playbook forward for other folks into perpetuity. Didn't end up working. It was a roadblock. You pivoted. Where did that pivot go?
Yeah, so another lived, learned lesson at this stage of my life. I'm at EY, I'm with all these other consultants, and I keep trying to start this idea, some form of this idea, this laundry delivery, whether it's college campuses or not, with other consultants. And so I had 2 attempts that were like half-baked, maybe even a 10th baked, in one instance, where the lesson I'd learned was, don't get into business with people out of convenience. And so having 2 or 3 consultants as founders, we all have the same skill set, the same, very similar backgrounds. We don't need 3 of me or 2 of me. And it's better to find business partners. And they can be friends and they can be family. I don't like the trope or the saying of like, don't get into business with friends and family. I think that's wrong. I think that doesn't work because you do it out of convenience, not for the right reason. Same reason I got into business with other consultants. It was for the wrong reason. It was out of convenience, not complementary skill sets of one another, deep trust of one another, whatever that it may be. And what I learned in that process was, go find co-founders that have skill sets wildly different than you, but have the same set of immediate core values. And so I ended up starting 2U Laundry in 2015. with one of my childhood best friends. We've known each other since fourth or fifth grade, but this time I was intentional. We sought each other out. He was working at startups in Minneapolis. All right, great. He understands startups, the hard work that goes into it, the sacrifice, the resiliency, perseverance, et cetera, that you have to have. But his background was in marketing and sales, and mine's more finance and operations. So now we're coming at this from two different skill sets, but a deep trust and alignment on the big things together. And we were all in. We started in 2015, late 2015. And the idea was, can we go do what all these Uber Frex businesses are doing at the time? You had Postmates and DoorDash and Instacart and Ship for grocery delivery, Wag Rover for dog walking, Zeal for on-demand massages. Like everything was on demand, last mile. How do we take these services and make them as convenient as a tap of a button?
Yeah, the Uber for X error.
We were in the thick of it. Probably missed started a year or two after it was really hyped up. But we launched 2U Laundry in January of 2016, and this time we were targeting just cities basically. So anyone in Charlotte, busy professionals, dual income households with kids, trying to just buy them their time back. Basically, we'll do your laundry and your dry cleaning. You can go back to doing the things that you love, working out, spending time with friends, family, chasing that next promotion or career thing, whatever it may be. Our goal is to take that household chore off of your plate.
Dig it. A couple of things here. So first, the concept of buyback time, that's such a cool thing in which we should probably talk about from a focal point in terms of go to market. Because I definitely want to be able to identify for the audience how you landed on the thing and what that actually looks like from a GTM motion and targeting the ICP all the way through and building. But before we do, to be able to acknowledge and appreciate live, learn lessons around the people and the team and starting a business with folks out of convenience, that really hits. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks bootstrapping in the audience right now listening, and they're in that moment in time. They're maybe looking around and they're like, hey, and that could be a great check. Yeah, because we're all guilty of it, right? We're all, because you're getting started, you're resource constrained, and your first the resource that you have is relationships. And you're trying to pull in and build this thing, and you need people to do it. And you're tapping into that goodwill, that relationship to be able to do so. And if you make the wrong types of decisions in terms of your framework of what you're trying to achieve, that could become a very expensive lesson to learn that listening to you right now could save you a lot of time, money, and grief. Time probably being and also save relationship. But you went with your best friend and you built this business. You decided we're going to help folks buy back time. What was this life cycle like? So take us go through market all the way through, because this was a venture backed biz, right? Slightly different from a lot of the conversations we have on episodes. So this is an opportunity to learn for sure. What was that like? What was the life cycle like? Going, raising, the things that came from that, the byproduct of it, the life cycle of the business. Take us through it.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the early days because it was, and I don't talk at this level of detail about it too often, but it really was such a formative time. I mean, we were 24 years old. Dan, my co-founder, childhood best friend, he packs his car, he quits his job, he breaks up with his girlfriend of 4 or 5 years at the time and is like, I'm starting over in Charlotte, starting this laundry thing with Alex. He is all in. I mean, everything he owned was in his car. He drove 20 hours straight. He didn't even stop throughout the night. He drove all the way through, gets to Charlotte. I owned a condo that I had bought with some of the money from the college business that we sold. And I already had 2 roommates. So this is a 3-bedroom place. It's 1,200 square feet. And we now have 2 more guys moving in. So Dan came and one of our other childhood best friends who was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm moving too. I'm coming down.
Yeah.
So we had 5 guys in a 3-bedroom place. I had a golden retriever puppy that I just gotten 8 months ago. So you can imagine tight quarters.
Yeah.
My mattress, Dan's mattress on the floor, Turner's mattress on the foot of our bed, basically, and just packed into this one room. And we did bootstrap at first. We put I think 10 grand total in. We were 24 and I have a ton of money saved up. Most of the money I'd made from the laundry thing I'd put into assets basically that weren't super liquid. And so we drove Uber every morning at 5:30, 6 a.m. until 9 or 10. Then we'd go work on the laundry thing the rest of the day. And then we'd go drive Uber again at night and on weekends. And it was really hard. I mean, we were like, what are we doing? Is this going to work? And I remember thinking the first 4 or 5 months were really slow. We went from 10K in revenue the first month to 20, 25 to 40 to 70. And people listening might be like, that's really fast. That's a lot of monthly revenue growth. But my brain was so conditioned to, in college, we'd open a booth for 2 weeks for this laundry thing, and parents would come out and buy packages for the whole semester, the whole school year.
Yeah.
And so we'd quickly have like 200 grand in revenue in a 2 week period. I was like, that's just how business works. You just turn something on and everyone pays you, 6 figures in revenue very fast. So in hindsight, I look back at how fast we were scaling as bootstrapped as we were. And it was actually super impressive. And I think that's why we started attracting investors and other folks saying, wow, you went from 0 to 60K in monthly revenue in less than 6 months. This is, you're on track to $1 million business in less than 7 or 8 months with 10K to start. Like that, like you guys are really onto something. And then we met this guy, Caleb, who he was probably 38, 39 at the time. And again, we're 24. And Caleb drastically changed the trajectory of all of our lives. He taught us, he was a startup guy through and through. Had raised money, understands go to market, understands product, could manage engineers in India or South America or anywhere, and taught us this idea of how do you hire people? How do you just attack the bottleneck and solve the next problem as quick as you can? And how do you raise money and how do you go to market? I mean, we knew some of that stuff, but not nearly as much as he did. And very fortunate and grateful that we had crossed paths with him. And that was by us just getting into the game and being around the hoop. We met him at startup events that we would go to because we're like, hey, we're entrepreneurs now in Charlotte. We got to go to these startup events and meet the other people and, just expand that network. And as cliche of a saying as it is, that idea of like your network is your net worth. I used to kind of scoff at that or be like, I don't know what people are talking about. But looking back on it, the people that we've met along the way have single-handedly, in many cases, made the difference of whether we make it or don't make it or what milestone we unlock or not. And so Caleb was one of those people in our story that wildly changed the outcome and the trajectory of everything that we've done and probably will continue to do.
For sure. And yeah, it is cliche. And sometimes when you're young, you don't, and you have such a huge ego, right? Because like a lot of times, us as entrepreneurs, we're very ego driven. We're like, I can do this because you have to be. It's like, no, you can't. Yes, I can. And like, sometimes it's like almost hard to even accept help because it's a vulnerability and it opens you up and it hits at that ego. So sometimes for young folks listening, it's like, don't live that way. You don't have to live to learn that lesson. Like, open yourself up early and often and accept the help, ask for the help, take the help. People want to help and pay it forward and people appreciate it for the right reasons, right? Open yourself up. Yeah.
We weirdly, I don't know what it was, and you got me thinking about it now, but the feedback we got from a lot of advisors, mentors, investors, et cetera, were what we like about you and Dan is that you are so curious and you just want to learn as much as you possibly can. Because we would, to your point, we would just go ask for help. We would go, hey, we don't know about this. Can you show it? What does ICP even mean? Where should we be spending We would not care at all because we just wanted to win. And we knew that we would win faster by going to people that had done it before us. And so I 1,000% agree with you. I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that for whatever reason. For him and I, it was just like an obvious next step of like, if you're going to win, you have to have mentors. Every great player, every great coach, every great business person has had a mentor or someone along the way show them something. There's a reason for that. We should go get as many of those people as we can and just like collect that network. And so I 1,000% agree. If you're listening, like go reach out thoughtfully, have an ego because you have to be a little bit crazy to go do this stuff, but like not an ego that's negative. Have a good ego. Yes, a negative ego is one that you think I can do it all. I'm the smartest person in the room. I already have all the answers. Like that's bad. A good ego is I believe in myself enough that I'm going to be 1 out of the 10 that make it, not one of the 9 that fail when they go to start a business. I'm going to be in that 10 because I'm going to work so much harder than everyone else. I'm going to go ask for help when I need it. That's a good ego to have.
Yeah, the pursuit of the known unknown. Dude, and tying it back to one of the live learn lessons of you achieving and getting that help, kill the constraint, right? Quite literally. It was like, come on, kill the constraint, like identify what's going on inside the business and be able to remove those constraints. This is a constraint to actively kill for anybody listening in the audience to be able to bring it back. You're in this motion in time. The other thing that I wanted to extract and double click, because you kind of glossed over it and it's pretty important. When you're in the college space and you're opening it up and it's a 200K, that's like quite literally identifying the corner outside of the baseball stadium on like the hot summer day. It's 110 and you're selling lemonade, cool lemonade. It's like literally it's a college campus. You got parents with money who care about their kids, who are letting them go into this world for the very first time. And mom's like, oh, I'm not going to be able to wash your underwear anymore for you. What can I do to keep you safe and secure and do this thing? Here's this service. Let me sign up for it. Okay, here's my wallet. Open it up. To talk about like finding right the demand and be able to position it to it. But you also, it sounded like, it wasn't as successful in your mindset because change your perspective, change your approach. You experienced such phenomenal product market fit demand early and often that it was almost like you started at the top. It's like, well, what's bad even look like? And how do you grind your way into ICP, product market fit? So you took it for granted and you learned, but still that's a really healthy growth life cycle, which you then found out through talking to the market and getting feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's good. What were you doing there to acquire customers? How did you find when you went to a broader market fit and you were in that motion? Like, how are you acquiring and how are you helping folks and selling into buyback?
So you nailed it with that kind of lightning in a bottle in college, and it making us have rose-colored glasses on everything. Like everything's just this way. This is how business works. And when we got hit in the face a little bit on, wait, why aren't we signing up thousands of people a week? There's 2 million people here at Wake. There was 3,000, and we signed up 20% of the student body population like fast.
Yeah.
It's like, why aren't we doing the same thing here? It's a way bigger market. It should be that easy, right? And we had ideas, hypotheses around like, all right, our customer is going to be a busy professional. They have disposable income. They don't, maybe they don't have a partner in life yet to like help with things, and so everything's on them, and they're traveling a lot. And we were naive. We just basically said, oh, it's consultants, because that's what I was. They're like, oh, it's busy professionals with disposable income. And until we started just putting the brand out there and to random different things, we posted on Nextdoor, we posted on Facebook groups, we would hold apartment events where we'd tell the apartment property manager, hey, we're going to bring pizza and beer and give your residents free laundry, one time, let them try it basically. And they would love it because they need something to do on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night for their residents. So we go to these, residencies with busy professionals.
Yeah.
And
find the audience. Yeah.
And like that kind of worked. It was like they need it mostly for dry cleaning. They're actually fine doing the laundry on their own, the wash, dry, fold piece. And it was a Nextdoor post we did that just blew up. All these moms started just like, this is a lifesaver. We had a mom call, I'll never forget. She was audibly in tears on the other end of the phone. She's like, you guys have no idea how much this is going to positively impact my life. I'm doing laundry every day. I get home from work, I'm doing dinner, I want to be done for the day. And then there's piles of clothes sitting there and it never ends. It's every night. She's like, I'm doing multiple loads a night. And I'm like, what? I had no idea. I'm 24. I'm like, I've never had kids. I haven't been married. And I'm like, this grown woman is crying about laundry. And like, it was funny to me at first. And the more I sat and I thought about it, like really empathized and put myself into that place in life, I was like, yeah, this probably is really exhausting because like some chores are satisfying. You complete them and it's like done and I don't have to do it for a while. Laundry is like you do it and there's already more there.
Yeah.
Like you're like literally wearing the
pain.
next load and you're like, no, it doesn't stop. Then you have kids on top of it who are not able to help, for a long time. And so you're like doing it for multiple people. And so I was like, holy crap, this is the niche. This is the group. This is busy families. This is mom ultimately making the purchasing decision. And like, we were so wrong, not so wrong, but mostly wrong about the busy professional. That's definitely one persona of ours, but it was the busy household, hands down. That was the stickiest, highest value, biggest lifetime value customer.
Which value extraction for the audience listening, great ICP that you just identified, paying it forward. You invested heavily to be able to identify that market as being the pain. There's a ton of different painkillers that you could position if you wanted to go out and be able to build a business. You just validated that there's real budget and there's real pain and there's a real reason to solve somebody's problem and make money by doing so. For anybody listening, quite literally validated with what became $100 million valued business in this venture life cycle. Take us through the pain of going venture. I wouldn't be doing my job on Bootstrapping to billions if I didn't position the enemy. No, but we appreciate there's capital, there's reasons to get capital, and there's leverage, finding leverage in finding capital. So we want to be able to celebrate and elevate and highlight the benefits, but also take off the rose-colored glasses as well for the audience, live, learn lessons if you're willing to pay it
Mm-hmm.
forward. We're in this life cycle journey. You found the pain. You're at market. You're consistently growing 20, 40, 80, 160, whatever the numbers are. And you pull in the right people. You surround yourself with talent. You're complementing away skills and primarily weaknesses to identify, remove constraints in the business, and things are working.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing in capital. What was that like? Take us through that moment in time life cycle of raising the capital, getting to the point where Series B takes some money off the table and potentially live, learn lessons for audience if folks may be in that cycle right now and they don't want to get caught, things that they could actually practically insider information, put to work. And then I want to make sure that we get to where we are today inside the life cycle of this episode so that we can then invite you back on and maybe double click into what a franchisable business actually looks like. It's probably pretty ownable. Take us through that journey you're raising. What was that like? Tell us the emotional feeling, the constraints, everything. Hair on the deal.
Yep. So when we started to get traction in Charlotte, I was in my 2007 Jeep Liberty delivering, picking up dirty laundry, dropping off clean. I would wear headphones and I would take customer support calls. Then I'd pull over on the side of the road. Every once in a while, I'll pull up my computer and I'd be working on, some sort of like product or, email related thing. And I remember Caleb being like, we can hire people, right? Like we're at a point now, you don't need to be doing 7 jobs. You can be doing 5, but like, let's take 1 or 2 of them off of our plates. And I remember Dan and I were like, well, you can hire people
or fire yourself.
Yeah, we were just, it just felt, I don't know, it felt so real. Anyway, so like that was a big unlock of like, all right, find the constraints, hire people, surround people around it. Caleb again pushing us. And that's where we started to raise money was, hey, we as a business are starting to generate some profit, but it's such a thin margin business. It's such a logistically intense business. You're in college going to one dorm and picking up 50 orders within 30 minutes.
Single market.
Now we're driving all over the place. And like, again, each individual order was profitable, but you needed enough volume and density to like really get it there. And that's why we started to unpack and learn from these other models like Uber or Postmates or DoorDash. Most of them weren't profitable for a very long time. Uber, even when it was public, I don't think had been profitable yet. And so we started to look at this and think, look, if this market is single family residential homes and not apartment buildings and not college campuses anymore, this is going to be either potentially massive, but it's going to take a lot of capital to do at that scale, or we have to say no to this ICP who clearly wants it as the pain point and go one zip code or one neighborhood at a time, which is going to also be slow and meticulous. And we also knew we didn't want to be the laundry guys forever. We're like, if this could be a good lifestyle business, but it's going to take a decade plus or more to get there.
Overnight success, decade in the making, yeah.
Exactly. Or do we raise money and do this faster and like really build a nationally recognized brand in this category that doesn't have a nationally recognized brand today? There isn't a Uber equivalent or a DoorDash or a Postmates or a Instacart equivalent. Let's go for it. Now's the time. And so that's what led to us wanting to raise money with speed and also just, capability of hiring people faster and building out more of the product and more markets faster. And so I'd never raised money like this before. I'm 24 years old.
Yeah.
Caleb, again, is kind of helping us in the background. And we had 3 or 4 venture capitalists all give us term sheets. And I remember thinking again, like, okay, this is just the process. This is how it's supposed to work. And tell our attorney who's been doing this forever, both on the West Coast and on the East Coast, all venture deals. That's all he does is startup capital raising law. And he was like, wow, you got term sheets from like 3 or 4 of the largest VCs in this part of the country. Like, you guys are doing something right. He was just shocked. And in hindsight,
who came in
like,
with
wow.
you? Who was on? Who was in on it?
It was Idea Fund Capital Partners. It was Full Tilt Capital. It was Co-Founders Capital. And then the Charlotte Fund, I think the Charlotte Angel Fund was a 4th one that was interested. And so we were trying to get all 4 of them involved. This is an interesting story. One of the VCs, Full Tilt, it's Anthony Pompliano who had started. He's now like a big personality. Yeah, Pomp he was doing a VC before he became.
He sold that fund, right? Yeah.
Internet famous.
That's an exited story.
Yeah. Well, and so he came to us and was like, look, guys, we really like what you're doing, but the terms that you guys just received are pretty like predatory. And he didn't need to do that. He could have easily gone along with it. And he just felt like it was the right thing to do to say like, hey, look, we wouldn't feel good investing in you guys at these terms because it is going to de-incentivize you guys down the road. And they had things like 3x liquidation preferences, which means they get paid 3 times their money back before anyone else gets paid. Like, that's just not market. It's not normal. But we were 24, and I think we were honestly being taken advantage of. And
Let's pause there for a second.
Yep.
Double click for the audience listening, because bootstrapping is quite literally the entry for most folks here to go and raise. And a lot of folks in our audience are in that life cycle right now, like you, for the very first time, doing it for the very first time. You learned in that experience because somebody helped you what a preference is, and how you could literally get wiped out building and take 7 years to build something. You get it and you think everything's good, but then you realize, oh, no, investors have to get 3 times their money back before you ever get a cent. Like, take us through like what that means. Like, what are the actual mechanics to be aware of that are predatory? That's an awesome double.
Yep. So there's a book I would recommend reading. It's called Venture Deals by Brad Feld. He's one of the founders of Techstars. It's a really good book
Great
on
reference.
the perspective of raising capital from a startup founder, from a startup investor, a VC, or even an angel investor, as well as a venture attorney. So it walks through like the 3 main kind of players in a deal and how they think about things and what all these terms mean. But the terms that we started to learn to look for was 1, liquidation preferences. So again, that just means typically 1x is standard, meaning the investor gets the better of their money back or their pro rata. Their percentage ownership in the business. They get the greater of the 2 in the business sells. So if they invested $1 million bucks.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. If they invested $1 million bucks and they own 10% of the business and the business sells for 20, do they get their $1 million back or 10% of 20 million? They'd rather have 10% of 20 million. So now they get their 2 million. But if it was anything less than 10 million, they're going to get their $1 million back before anyone else gets paid. So a 3x liquidation preference means, on that same example, they need to get at least $3 million before anyone else gets anything. And that might sound, oh, that's not too bad. Why not? But there's certain scenarios where that can really turn into the rest of the stack, in the stack being this kind of waterfall of who gets paid first when an exit happens. It can really set the founders or those that own common stock up into a position where they work super hard for 6-7 years and then they're left with nothing because all the investors have to get paid first. And especially if there's a 3x liquidation preference, it can really put you underwater. It also sets a weird precedent for future rounds. Now other investors are like, what are you guys doing? We don't feel comfortable investing now. Or they think maybe we can get away with doing something like that too. And these guys are just used to doing that. So you have to be really thoughtful about all these terms. So liquidation preferences. And then there's participating versus non-participating preferred. And that means, are they going to participate beyond their liquidation preference or not in an exit as well? So do they get their money back and then they also get to participate their pro rata, which now is like the double whammy. They're double dipping. And so that's important to pay attention to. Board seats are important to pay attention to. Pre-money and post-money valuations are important to pay attention to. And real quick example on that, if you are raising $1 million at a $9 million pre-money, the post-money is just your pre-money plus the money coming into the business. Because if you were worth 9 million before any money came in, you must be worth that 9 million plus whatever cash you just got. So in that example, the post-money is $10 million. And that's where the dilution comes out. You take what you received in investment, so $1 million, divided by the post-money valuation, 10. You just gave up 10% of the company. So if you own 50%, multiply your 50% times 10% you just got diluted by, so 5% here, you're now down to 45%.
Don't do public math, but very much so appreciate the fact that you just did. Because truly. And this is probably maybe even a carve out that we could also do. Like, talk about, opportunities. Capital readiness is a huge function, of building a profitable, sustainable business that you're going to have that's durable, transferable, and valuable for as long as possible. So you can exit with ownership. And this is literally a masterclass in the things that you need to pay attention to if you are going to go and raise capital, which you did. This is all learned experience, like doing it at a very high level, dude. So when you raised the money, did you raise to franchise? Was that around that concept, or like, take us through exactly what was going on? And then I want to make sure that I get us to the point of what we're doing today with Franzi as well. And the learn lessons and the models that we learned and what a franchisable and like the thing that you're doing today for sure as well. But this is such a journey. It's so valuable. And the fact that you just did it. Thank you. Where are we?
Yeah. So we raised 400K in the first round. Call it like a pre-seed. Some people might call it a friends and family round. We raised the 400K, and that was really to build out some of the product in Charlotte and like just go deeper in Charlotte to prove how big is this market. Because if we nail Charlotte, then can we go raise more money to do a second, a third, or fourth city? So we raised 400K.
Being on demand.
Yeah, we did everything via text at first.
Okay.
No app yet, which actually was a huge positive decision because managing multiple code bases, especially then, I mean, it's much easier now with AI and some of the AI coding tools. But at the time, 2015 or 16-ish,
Yeah.
building a mobile app for iOS and for Android and then a web app, it's multiple code bases. It's super expensive. So we're like, let's just do all SMS. Everyone lives on their phone anyway. We don't need another app for laundry. You can just say
Simple
like,
way to
hey,
go.
Chris, we're going to be in your neighborhood Tuesday. You want to pick up? Yes, no. Why for yes and for no, or boom, we're done. And you can automate all of it. So we
Keep
did
it
that.
simple.
Kept it simple at first, went deeper in Charlotte, and then we raised a $1.5 million round to launch our second market, which was Atlanta. We went through Techstars at the time, which was an awesome experience. Again, made us way more equipped to be good entrepreneurs. We learned a ton, just like we learned from Caleb, this Techstars group, like 5x that. We just really expanded our network, our knowledge base on how to scale these things. Launched Atlanta. That starts to go well. We raised $6 million Series A at that point, and then COVID happens. This is now 2020, and we were just launching Raleigh with that money. We are going to go launch 4 or 5 other cities because this was funny. The VCs kept moving the goalpost on us. They're like, oh, well, maybe it was just a fluke in Charlotte. Maybe it was just a fluke in Atlanta. We really got to see you in 3 cities. Oh, we got to see you in 5 cities. They really wanted to see that this was repeatable because it is such a labor intensive business. They were like, you can't just like turn on the whole country.
Yeah.
You have to go market
Build
by
a
market,
market.
just like Uber did and Instacart and all these other Uber for X businesses. And it's not easy to do. It's such a land and expand and ground effort and like trench warfare. Every city you're starting over.
Tough margins. Yeah.
Tough margin, logistically intensive. So it is very much a it really
Talk about the
pushed us
need
to
for
learn a
operational
ton.
excellence, though. Get it forged
So
in fire.
much. So much. I mean, so through this journey, we were outsourcing everything to mom and pop laundromat owners and wholesale dry cleaners. The dry cleaning piece worked great because they have this big operation that they're doing all the cleaning for the whole city out of this warehouse with tons of equipment, tons of people. On the laundry side, though, if you think about it, there's never been a need for mass volume, individualized cleaning before. There's big wholesale laundromat or wash, dry, fold operators like Cintas and Ulsco that do all this hotel linen and uniforms.
Yep.
But we have to keep Chris's stuff separate from Alex's, and I might want hypoallergenic detergent and you don't. And so we had to do this like small batched mass volume cleaning. So all these individual washers or dryers. And so if you think about it, laundromats have that. The issue that we ran into though is a laundromat owner is more of a landlord. They're not an operator. They don't have staff of 10, 15 plus like the dry cleaning wholesaler does. And so somewhere along the journey, we realized this isn't going to work at scale unless we hire our own staff to go in and do this because the owner keeps mixing Chris's stuff with Alex's and is not comfortable managing more than 2 people. And so we started doing laundry service during off hours, overnight.
Using the extra capacity when it's not being used.
Correct.
And you're not then responsible for building out the CapEx of the infrastructure. And you're essentially putting in your people who know your process to be able to deliver the right product for your customer.
Yeah. So we think like we're brilliant. Like, oh, look what we just did. It's an asset utilization thing. We found this underutilized capacity. Part of the money we raised was to then build technology around that process so we could just drop anyone into the cleaning process and they could figure it out. Super self-guided, keeps quality at the forefront. We're like, all right, that's what we focus on. We nailed that part. Then the issue we ran into was laundromats are typically like 2,000 to maybe 3,000 square feet. A lot of them are even smaller. They're kind of grungy, old equipment, no consistency. Some owners are great to work with. Most of them, honestly, were kind of a headache because they're used to their life being 5 to 10 hours of time in the laundromat, the rest collecting quarters, doing maintenance, etc. And here we come with this squad of 15 to 20 employees in the middle of the night. And so we ran into an issue where some owners were like, I got to start charging you for toilet paper and stuff that your team is using while they're here. And we're like, what? We're bringing you 10 grand a month in revenue you didn't have. And there was that kind of like ticky-tacky confrontational type of relationship. We thought maybe that was an isolated incident. We kept seeing it like this. There's a kind of a stereotype happening here. And we had an internal conversation around if this is what it looks like with 5 laundromats, what's it going to look like at 500 or 5,000? Like this isn't as professionalized of a setup as the dry cleaning wholesaler who is used to working with other businesses and having partnerships and contracts. And an intense process and operational excellence again. And we're like, we need to vertically integrate and build our own facilities. And so we partnered with Electrolux, who happened to be their North American headquarters is here in Charlotte. We we actually buy an old McDonald's building from McDonald's corporate of all people that we do our first commercial real estate deal with.
The
It's
ultimate
60.
franchise. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So 6,300 square feet. And we convert it into a laundromat that's open 7 days a week to the public. So new income, new revenue stream, new customer that we are serving now out of this laundromat. But laundromats are busiest. They generate 80% of their revenue Friday through Sunday. The
Yeah.
rest of the week, it
People
just
need
sits
them.
dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would open this laundromat up on the weekends. It was one of the largest laundromats in North Carolina. Then Monday through Friday, when walk-in customer doesn't need it, we'd put these roll-up doors down. And the building was laid out in a way that was like an assembly line, but on the weekends it just looked like a laundromat. You couldn't really tell.
Yeah.
As soon as the roll-up doors went down, we had this like tunnel of assembly for all of our delivery volume. And so now we had two different customer bases being cleaned out of the same asset base that we owned.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is it. This is the unlock. There's CapEx now for sure, but way more revenue, better margins, way more quality control.
Yeah.
This is it. And so when COVID
Appreciate that
happened,
CapEx.
oh yeah. When COVID happened, coming full circle to this, we'd raised this $6 million. We're in this kind of weird spot with COVID. We realized the laundromat is this very positive anchor. During COVID, the laundromat grew. During recessions, laundromats do really well. They're deemed essential. People have to have clean clothes especially if they don't have their own washer and dryer. And so we're like, laundromats are a good anchor. They give downside risk protection. And then we can layer all of our delivery on top of it all day long. We just, these aren't cheap. They're $1 million each to build. How do we scale to hundreds of locations? And that's when we came up with the idea of what if we franchise the brick and mortar and layer the pickup and delivery business on top of it? And this becomes more of like a managed marketplace or a franchise vertical, kind of native brand.
Almost like a barbell type of strategy. It's like your brick and mortar dry cleaner is the consistent, steady cash flow, safe bet. And then you got this venture velocity upside on the barbell. And in order to scale the thing that's unscalable, you're deciding to franchise it because that's how you can scale something like that. Is that the thought process?
Correct.
Is that essentially the model?
1,000%. 1,000%. And so we started franchising a subsidiary called LaundraLab. We sold 118 locations.
And this is 2020 now.
This is 2021. We started concepting it and really launched it in 2021. And then over the next 2 or 3 years, started selling licenses, getting stores open, figuring out what it meant to be a franchise and just learning that whole world and that whole market.
Was this your first foray into franchising?
It was. Yeah. My co-founder's dad was a franchisee of a sign franchise. I think it was Signorama. And so he knew a little bit about it. But again, going back to not having an ego and being curious, when you need to be, we just surrounded ourselves with the best of the best franchise folks, franchise attorneys, franchise people that have built franchisors themselves and have sold them, and just learned as much as we could about what's an FDD, a franchise disclosure document, what's an area development agreement, how does that work, what royalties should you do, should you ramp the royalties or not charge royalties at first when you're starting, what's the franchise fee, what marketing fund fee do you take, all of these things that go into figuring out this system in this playbook. We just obsessed with, again, surrounding ourselves with people that had done it before.
Yeah. And you had the resources to be able to do this. Were those resources bought into this model? So is that what ultimately was the talk track that continued to bring in capital and everyone was kind of bought into this one singular vision and approach? Or was this the pivot in order to where are we? Put the whole picture together.
Yeah. So this was a pivot after COVID. And so when we'd raised the $6 million pre-COVID, our thought was we're going to launch markets asset light. We'll go in and leverage other people's laundromats like we had been doing in Charlotte because that worked, even though it was painful up to a certain volume. Let's go get enough customer base and then we'll buy our own facility or convert our own facility and flip all that volume over so that it's profitable. This fixed cost, this CapEx is profitable day one because of all the delivery volume. And there was a path we thought maybe we'll just do all these corporate owned stores and we'll get a revolving line of credit or we'll find some venture debt of sorts and we'll just go build tons of laundromats because they are wildly profitable and they give us the quality control, et cetera. The issue was as we launched Raleigh and we're overnight in other people's facility, again, just the complexity of the operation. You're dealing with someone else's facility.
Yeah.
And we're in different cities now. You're not just in our backyard anymore. Once COVID happened, dry cleaning took a 70%, just as an industry. It's rebounded back to 60%. It's never going to go back to, I don't think, to where it was. So dry cleaning takes a hit. pickup and delivery, laundry actually grew. I think people were more busy than they had been previously, being at home. They're now caretaker for their children. They're making lunches. They're making sure they're getting educated. They're working their job full time still. Like they need help with laundry more than ever. So that grew. And then walk-in laundry customers, that grew substantially. So we kept coming back to this theme of like, this is the main business, these laundromats plus doing volume out of it. No one's done this before. This is the interesting larger market, but it's not cheap and we don't have as much control as we'd like. Well, if we franchise, we can scale locations with partners that bring capital in. They also will care about the operation as much as we do, if not more, because it's their own skin
Ownership.
in the game versus the mom and pop operator who's a certain personality, a certain stereotype, who doesn't want to operate beyond just a passive laundromat business.
It's not theirs. Yeah. Tap into the
so we were like,
ownership.
We get to handpick active owners. We get to help, design the layout and what size it should be, what equipment mix. We get to train them on the process. We use our technology to facilitate that process. There's just the control that we needed for quality with the partnership of a franchisee who's bringing capital, operational expertise, the right mentality, et cetera. So like this is the model. Like franchising allows us to go faster with better people in a more capital efficient way. Win, win, win for everyone. Let's
And
go.
You fell in love with it.
Yeah, I used to hate franchising, and now I'm a full blown advocate and fanboy of this being one of the best paths to wealth creation in America. But I guess to summarize it
So we are now building this franchise business. You're falling in love with the franchise model because you're literally seeing it working. Like, where did you take it? So now you've made this pivot. We're in the franchise. How did you roll that out? Where did it end up going? And then everything at some point, every end is a new beginning. And we know that you're in Franzi today. So feet in the middle. And then also for any folks listening, like any strategic insights you may have from that venture round and going through that process, something that they could maybe pull off the table for themselves.
Yeah. So we'd basically taken our Series A, and instead of launching all these corporate stores, we pivoted into franchising. And so now the Series A was, let's go make sure that we build this the right way, the right infrastructure, systems, et cetera, and see if we can get some early proof and traction in the world of franchising. We ended up selling 118 locations in about a year and a half. So, all right, people really loved the idea of laundromat ownership, the idea of a laundromat franchise. We can scale and layer this 2U piece on top in certain markets where it makes sense. And this could be really the right playbook. And as we started to get locations open and then launching 2U behind it, we realized there's still this venture piece that is capitally intensive. The delivery piece still requires a ton of go-to-market and marketing dollars, a ton of logistics, and local operation dollars. But the franchise piece is pretty, I don't want to say self-sufficient, but there's a more logical de-risked ramp to scaling that.
Stability and sustainability that's predictable.
Right. But we felt like you're still going to have, you look at Uber, you look at Postmates, you look at any of these Uber for X businesses, they had all raised at that point hundreds of millions of dollars. And we at that point had raised 10. So it was just like, hey, we've done a lot with a little, but if we're ever going to go build this national brand, like we have to stay on this path of raising a war chest to go expand markets faster, capabilities faster, the product faster, go buy market share faster, maybe acquire some of these routes and local customers faster. And so we had our eyes on a Series B of how do we go raise 15 to 25 million to then unlock probably one more large like Series C, maybe even a Series D to go raise that $100 million round to go start sweeping the nation once we've proven, core 10 markets or so. And so we started talking to Series B investors. We ended up raising $20 million from a firm out of Atlanta called L5 Capital. They were early money in Restore, Hyper Wellness, and a few other large franchise systems. But that was their specialty, was how do we scale franchise brands, which was perfect for obviously what we were doing and what we were getting into. And that was to supercharge site selection capability and training and marketing, as well as the 2U piece and scaling that up more aggressively.
So 118 locations, a year and a half. There's probably a talk track story in terms of how, but I think maybe we save that in terms of insight of like how to bring a franchise to market and what that even looks like from your learned experience there. But you quite literally went through this process. You're in the Series B. Were you able to participate at all?
Yeah. So we raised 20 million and then 5 million of that was secondary, share repurchases. So for those listening, that means that 15 million is new equity that the company is issuing. Everyone's getting diluted by us issuing that equity. The other 5 million doesn't create dilution because they're just buying up existing shareholders' shares. So me, my co-founder, all of our early investors that wanted to participate, everyone got to exercise their pro rata and sell some of their shares of that 5 million until it was gone. So those pre-seed investors, seed investors, some Series A investors even were able to do what's taking chips off the table. They're taking some of the house money and letting the rest ride. And so Dan and I were able to do that as well. And that was a good experience to realize there's certain things that people don't talk about that I wish they did. And one of those things is called QSBS, Qualified Small Business Shares.
First episode of the pod. Yeah. Talk about it for sure.
It's incredible. And I didn't know about it until, we sold some shares, and our tax guy's like, yeah, you don't know anything on them. I'm like, what? So up to $10 million in gains is completely taxed, both federally and state, tax-free.
Legally, yeah.
And so again, no one had talked about that. No one had said anything about it. You hear about like the 83B election that you should do when you buy equity or you buy shares or start a company up front, which it makes your long-term capital gains, I think, capped at 15% or something like that if you do it. But this, to be completely tax-free, was no idea. And that's super meaningful.
Right. So talk about, for the audience listening, just to double click into it, live, learn lessons, having the opportunity to take a little bit of chips off the table. Yes, you're potentially limiting your potential upside in the future, which you're going to continue to participate in, just a slightly little less, to realize something right now. And it's all typically about liquidity without losing control, or liquidity whenever you possibly can, because liquidity is how you're ultimately putting the profit in your pocket from these assets in which we own. And there's all these methodologies that you can pull and levers that you can pull. And not too many folks share what you did in terms of live, learn lessons. So folks listening right now, that's something to earmark as well, which I appreciate. Now, we went through this process, we built this business, and today we are in Franzi. So you got to experience growing and scaling to 118 locations. You went through this capital life cycle with the business. I definitely want to be able to get to the concept of the exit there, and then every exit becoming a new beginning. And if you could take us through that moment in time where the two bridge, and that brings us to the point of a potential culmination for this episode, knowing and earmarking for the audience to pay attention and listen, because there's going to be a part 2 that comes up. But take us home today.
Yep. Yeah. So we'd raised the money in late 2022. And then in 2023, and I've been pretty open about this, I had a series of kind of like family and personal things start to happen. One, the business is scaling like crazy at this point. And then my dad gets diagnosed with cancer.
Sorry.
He's cancer free now, so it's good. All these things ended up being, I don't want to say positive, but fine. But at the moment, it was definitely my equivalent of, I don't know if rock bottom, but just a really tough 6 months to navigate, essentially, maybe 6 to 10 months. But my dad gets diagnosed with cancer. He's in his 70s. I'm in my early 30s. And he lives in Minnesota. I'm here in North Carolina. So that had always been weighing on me. I found out my wife has this immigration thing that we weren't expecting. She finds out she's not a U.S. citizen after believing she was her whole life. So that throws a wrench into that throws a wrench into hers and I's life and plans. My COO at 2U ended up having a heart attack and passing away unexpectedly. And then I ruptured my Achilles, all within kind of a 4 to 5 month window. And I go to our board. I'm just like, look, I'm trying to power through this, but this is a lot of things happening on top of an already stressful environment of scaling a startup and opening all these locations and trying to do a lot all at once. And their feedback to me was like, this is a competitive sport, and we need someone whose head's in the game. And right now, rightfully so, your head cannot possibly be in the game. Your dad's sick. Your wife's navigating this really, really random, like Night Shyamalan twist of a life. You got this physical injury, et cetera. Like, take 3 or 4 months and go clear your head, take a sabbatical. We got this, and we'll do like a weekly check-in. So I did that for a few months, and during that time, I did a lot of thinking about what am I good at, what am I not good at, what do I want to be doing with my time. And the business that we were running at that point had evolved so much from this college laundry thing, so much from us just doing delivery laundry in Charlotte to now one that has trucks and washers and dryers and physical retail locations and a franchise component. And I was like, I don't know if I'm the guy that takes us from 30 stores open to 300 or 3,000. And at the same time, I'd been thinking about this idea for Franzi for a few years now. And I always tell people when they have an idea, really think about it, do your market research for 3 to 6 months. And then if you're still thinking about it and you're still as excited about it, go all the way and quit your job. Don't look back, go 100 hours a week. But a lot of people, I think, get an idea one night or at a bar or, they're talking with friends
Talking
or
with
whatever it
buds,
is.
yeah.
And then it fades a week later, but in that moment, they're getting all hyped up and energized. And so my point is like, really see if that energy is still there 3 to 6 months later, because then you should do it. And this idea for Franzi had been in the back of my head for 2 years at that point. And we're in franchising and I see all the problems with it. It's a great business model. It's a great way for people to become entrepreneurs, business owners, create wealth, etc. But there's so many bad actors. There's so much misaligned process. There's so much that I think is less evolved than it should be. And one of those is around how you buy, a franchise. Today, there's not a lot of available information. There's these FDDs, but they're 200 pages full of legal docs that your average person doesn't want to read or isn't sure how to navigate or read. So it's very confusing there. Finding these FDDs is not super obvious at times, which makes it less accessible. And then there's all these business brokers that people are navigating through. And what I learned, and I didn't realize, and I'm still shocked by this, is to become a franchise broker, there are no requirements. There's no coursework. There's no licensure. So Alex and Chris can be, boom, we're franchise brokers now. Like that's it. We can start selling them. And a problem with that is it attracts, I think, bad actors, people who don't have a hurdle or friction to prove that they're capable of doing it. It means there's going to be some people that just come in and do it to try to make a quick buck. And when the commissions are 60%, which is what they are in a lot of cases, so there's a lot of money to be made. It creates just this bad, kind of environment. And so I see a lot of people take bad advice from bad people. I say good people take bad advice from bad people and not realize it until it's too late. And at that point, the broker is long gone and they have no recourse. And so the brand and the individual franchisee are both worse off. And so our goal with Franzi is how do you democratize access to data, information around this process so that you can make the best possible decision. Similar to what Zillow's done for the real estate market for all of us to go kind of online shop and get our bearings and see what we like, don't like before potentially engaging with a professional to help us navigate a purchase.
Yeah. So talk about like quite literally a pain into a painkiller of a market. And the pain is really just the market itself. The market's misaligned. And because of that misalignment, quite literally one of those situations where the free market creates it. Brands are trying to find folks to purchase these franchises. So they offer up these fees. If a broker's coming in and there's no qualifications or credentials to be able to be that person, they're just looking for the transaction and the fee to flow through, and they're going to try to find the highest fee, and that highest fee is going to be an influencing factor on what they tell or sell to the person who's looking to buy. And that's now form fit failure, which is a broken market, and you are solving that. And so you're fixing the problem of that broken market with Franzi today. And you're doing so with live-learned experiences and live-learned lessons, quite literally having lived this life from college all the way through, which you just shared on an epic hour-plus episode of Bootstrapping the Billions with us today. Part 1, because I definitely would appreciate it if you came back to the pod as a friend of the, and we double-click deeper into what a franchisable business even is, all of these lessons that you lived through in terms of 118 which we completely glossed over of like, how? What does this mean? What is that like? There's so much just like practical, boots on ground level episode experience there. Alex, until next time, trust the process, commit to the journey. That's the pod.
Thanks, Chris. Part 2.
Stop.